Today is an historic day in Dominica. For today, we take a step that makes the people of the Commonwealth of Dominica the first in the OECS to accede to the appellate jurisdiction of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Against this background, it is my pleasure, on behalf of the government and people of Dominica, to extend a gracious welcome to all of you for joining us at this historic ceremony. I am especially thankful to the President of the Court and his fellow judges for responding positively to our invitation to join us for today's event. Your esteemed presence here, your lordships, allows our citizens to see in the most tangible of ways that with this move, improved access to justice comes within the scope and reality of the ordinary Dominican citizen. This may seem a trite observation to some, but the reality of making more accessible and more affordable a second appellate process deepens the rights guaranteed by our Constitution and increases Dominica's ability to attract more foreign investment, for which access to the resolution of disputes and the rule of law remains critical. I would like to thank you, Sir Dennis, for your perceptive and stimulating remarks. You have reinforced our conviction that the court is in capable, experienced, and wise judicial hands. Indeed, you will forgive me for noting that it is entirely appropriate that, as a son of the Eastern Caribbean, you should be the president of the court, as our country becomes the first state from the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States to accede to the appellate jurisdiction of the court. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, friends, it was easy for us to identify a featured speaker for this occasion. Dr. Francis Alexis currently heads Grenada's Constitutional Reform Committee. He is a former lecturer at the University of the West Indies Cayville campus and has served as Attorney General in Grenada. Dr. Alexis has straddled platforms in politics, academia, government, legal practice, and consultancy. He has authored the seminal work, Changing Caribbean Constitutions. This is an essential area of study for all Commonwealth Caribbean states that have had, after a generation of independence, to reflect on how best they may perfect their constitutional and governance arrangements for the benefit of the development of our societies. One respected Grenadian lawyer described Dr. Alexis as a truly remarkable and iconic Grenadian son. I would go further and assert that he is truly a remarkable and iconic Caribbean citizen. This has been exhibited in the quality of his presentation, a discourse that not only reflected an enviable depth of legal scholarship and practical experience in the law, but also a true connection to the needs of ordinary Caribbean people. I invite you to join me in registering our deep appreciation and thanks to Dr. Alexis for his erudite contribution here today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the road that has led us to this day has been paved with the ambivalence that some of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean continue to wrestle with in the search for full constitutional independence. In some respects, many of us were drawn to reflect on the spirited exchanges on the pros and cons of political independence that filled political circles, as well as our region's media spaces in the 1960s and 1970s. Political independence is now a settled matter and is often taken for granted in most of our territories. When the Dominican flag was raised on the night of November 3, 1978, symbolizing the birth of a new and independent nation, there was an ongoing debate between the two dominant political parties of the day. The nation's first Prime Minister, Patrick Rowland John, embraced independence and saw it as a path to self-determination and a catalyst for national development. Mary Eugenia Charles, then leader of the opposition, compared the country to a person setting out on a journey with a few basic supplies from its colonial past. She expressed concern about the maintenance of democracy and the rule of law in the new nation. We have come a very long way since then. But that seed that would have eventually blossomed in today's symbol of constitutional independence, in my view, was planted by the one who is widely regarded as the father of this nation, Edward Oliver LeBlanc. He was a true nationalist. He taught us how to be proud of our Dominican heritage, our culture, music, dance, and folklore. He was in his time at the forefront of the action for a region to pull away from the dependence of the mother country. He was there in London at a conference where he attempted to save the West Indian Federation by the creation of the Little Eight, following the withdrawal of Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. In 1966, he was also there at the Lancaster House Conference to make Dominica a self-governing associate state. He was the inspiration that gave birth to a number of nationalist songs, such as Pakite Yo Point Dominic Hot Nu and Dominica, the Land of Beauty. Ladies and gentlemen, it is therefore no coincidence that the Dominica Labour Party, the party over which Mr. LeBlanc exercised a profound and lasting influence, has led the charge for full constitutional independence for Dominica. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Dominicans, I am honored and indeed humbled to be the one leading our country at this historic moment. I have in the past argued that our country could not be truly independent if its final court of appeal was a court located in London, thousands of miles away, and tens of thousands of dollars away from the access of ordinary Dominican citizens. We complete today that third and final declaration of our sovereignty. We build today on the two earlier steps, our political independence and our determination that our head of state must be a citizen of our fair land. Over the years, there have been numerous debates and discussions of the pros and cons of adopting the Caribbean Court of Justice as our final appellate court. We began the formal process with a request of the British government for a no objection to the link from the Privy Council. Having received a favorable response in January 2014, there was no need to proceed by way of a referendum. The way was then open to introduce a motion in the Parliament for amending the Constitution to recognize the Caribbean Court of Justice as our final appellate court. To secure this outcome, we needed the support of 3/4 of the elected members of Parliament. This was achieved on Tuesday, July 1, 2014. The order bringing it into effect was issued on the 27th of February, 2015. So we could have taken matters to the Privy Council yesterday and the day before. So we're here today to celebrate this important milestone. Next month, on April 16th, will be the 10th anniversary of this August Caribbean Court. There is no doubt that the early phase of it being established as a hanging court to fend off the consequences of the ruling of the Privy Council in Pratt and Morgan were ill-founded. The body of Caribbean jurisprudence developed thus far attests to the wisdom displayed by the heads of government of the Caribbean community in signing the agreement on February 14, 2001, to facilitate the establishment of this court. I am not an attorney at law, but I travel the region widely. The commentary from those who have been following its work in its appellate jurisdiction, especially in Barbados and Guyana, and more recently in Belize, reinforce in our minds why this is the right and necessary step for our country. We're already aware of the difference the court has made in its original jurisdiction in protecting the rights of our citizens under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. This was most evidently seen in the judgment in the Shannick Myrie case against the civil authorities in Barbados, which was widely published and in which a citizen of Jamaica sought to assert the rights conferred on her as a citizen of the Caribbean community. This brings me to my next point, ladies and gentlemen. While we acknowledge our accession to the Caribbean Court of Justice today, my government will ensure that we undertake a public education exercise so that all our citizens may be aware of their rights and how they can access the court in its appellate jurisdiction. I understand from what the Chief Justice has said that the court conducted sessions on this yesterday, and we pledge to build on this. We must know for which matters there will be an automatic right to appeal to the CCJ, and for which other matters we must first seek leave from the Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal. While persons may readily access advice from their attorneys, it is always better when they do so against a background of information that is freely available to all. Fellow citizens and residents of Dominica, there are very few actions we take as a government that have no immediate financial consequences. This is one of them. On the inauguration of the court, the heads of government of the region established a trust fund, which is managed by an independent body of trustees, to ensure that the income of the trust would support the recurring budget of the court. We therefore would have made our contribution to the trust fund some 10 years ago. The foresight in the settlement of these financial arrangements is now celebrated across the democratic world, for it has insulated the court from the appearance of possible influence of any government. Our citizens should also be comforted by the fact that the Regional Judicial Services Commission is an independent body that is responsible for appointing all the justices of appeal of the court, with the exception of the president, for whose appointment there must be a qualified majority of 3/4 of the heads of government on the recommendation of the commission. Indeed, the Regional Judicial Services Commission is comprised mainly of representatives of the regional private sector and regional civil society, including, of note, representatives from the bar associations of the OECS and a representative of the OECS Secretariat. As I indicated earlier, some of our other neighbors in CARICOM are still contending with constitutional and domestic issues and acceding to the appellate jurisdiction of the CCJ. I hope that the step taken today by the people of Dominica will aid in strengthening their resolve to make this final step in their own independence arrangements and in the enrichment of our Caribbean civilization. The ability of our people to have their matters and conflicts determined by our own judges, who can appreciate their cultural traditions and the nuance of their language, will, in my view, enhance the dispensation of justice for our people. These justices of appeal are better positioned to appreciate our wants, our needs, our mentality, and our spirit. Never doubt how important this is in the determination of cases. As simple as it may seem, words are open to several interpretations, and much depends on context and culture. For example, we do not have to explain that a lime is not a citrus fruit when that word is used to describe a gathering of our people, sharing fellowship in the midst of a carnival festivity. Finally, there is no doubt that our Caribbean jurisprudence will be strengthened. We anticipate that there will not only be the fearless efforts to protect the rights of our people or to interpret the law of those who may need further guidance, but as has already been seen by the decisions of the court, there will continue to be a healthy approach to judicial activism as we seek to transform former colonies into confident and fair independent nations. Laws may be made in Parliament, but they are perfected through the interpretation of the courts. Together, both the legislature and the judiciary play their role in the transformation of societies and the use of law as a tool of empowerment in the development process of our societies and economies. We believe that the Caribbean Court of Justice will continue to generate an important body of legal precedent and jurisprudence, from which other democratic societies across the Commonwealth, founded on the same fundamental rights and freedoms guaranteed by our constitutions, will draw. We have a worthy contribution to make to the evolution of Commonwealth jurisprudence. Indeed, we note that the larger the pool of countries over which the court presides, the larger will be the pool of cases that will come before it, and the more diverse the range of cases. Your Excellencies and your Lordships, ladies and gentlemen, as I close, let me reflect on the idea that has been often asserted that the only thing we need to do to fail as a Caribbean region is to doubt ourselves. Doubt and fear are universal emotions that paralyze people. In the name of the people of our nation, the Commonwealth of Dominica, I boldly assert our confidence in who we are as a people and what we can achieve when we set our minds to the task at hand. We shall eagerly embrace our future, fortified with the knowledge that today we bring closer to the average Dominican, not just the promise, but also the reality of what it means to be a sovereign and independent people. I commend this Caribbean Court of Justice to all Dominicans. Let this act reflect the commitment that we can always rise to higher heights when we seek to perfect the manner in which we govern ourselves and give clear and decisive expression to what we must achieve to allow each Dominican the opportunity to be a better person. Today, with God's blessings and grace, we come one step closer to perfecting that goal. I want to say to us in the Caribbean, not only to Dominicans, that we need to show greater appreciation for the achievement of our people. Too many times we seek to question who we are as a people, to question our competence, and we believe too often that that which comes from out our region is superior to that which is created by our people. So while we are here questioning the competence and integrity of our justices across the board, the rest of the world are admiring them and wishing that they were serving their own people. And I can say that I find it very offensive when people who I believe ought to know better are propagating that kind of notion, questioning our people and questioning our ability. We have to stand on principle. And principle should never be negotiated. We can negotiate words, but not principle. And I stand there on principle that we have what it takes, we have the human resources to advance our nation in the way that we would like to see it advance. And we have to stand on this principle at all times. So I am indeed very humbled to be the Prime Minister of this country at this time. And I want to say to you, Mr. President of the Court, that in the next 3 months of my term comes to an end on the 1st of June, I will ensure that some governments in the region take steps towards recognizing the court. But I believe to have the credibility to urge, we need to take the lead, and that's what we have done. I thank you. May God bless the court, may God bless our country, and may God bless our Caribbean community. Thank you. God bless you.